Welcome to episode 68 of the Twig Snapper Podcast. Today we're joined by Roshen Jaswal. How you doing today?
Doing great. How are you doing?
I'm pretty good. I'm glad we finally were able to finagle this.
Yep.
Once in a while it takes a while to match up schedules, but we got it. We're here. And we got a lot of different stuff we can talk about. Let's start in your juniors. We'll talk about that for a little bit. You were a two-time SIJHL champ. So I guess talk about that a little bit. It's like one of your first tastes of success, as a young hockey player.
Yeah, no, it was in Fort Francis, Ontario, little league, junior A league out there. But I was actually playing out in Rochester, New York, for the Rochester Junior Americans. And then I had a few friends that were up in Fort Francis playing there. And around Christmas time, they had a good team, really good team. And they were hosting the Central Canada Cup, the Dudley Hewitt Cup, which is the cup for the RBC, which is the national championship. So they were trying to put together a pretty good team. So they were calling me, kind of trying to get me to come. And then around Christmas, I was like, you know what? Yeah, I'll jump ship. So I came over, and we had a great team. I think we only lost like 10 games out of 56 that year in the regular season, and then we won our league, the SIJHL, beat Dryden in 6 in the finals, which was a crazy series. It was a fun series. That was like the first championship I ever won. Even like growing up, I feel like every tournament we went to, all that, we always finished second, so it was kind of, it was nice to finally win something. And it was pretty amazing feeling to win that one. And then we ended up going to the Central Canada Cup, which we hosted, which was nice because we didn't have to go through the back door. We actually had a league to go. And then we lost 3-2 in the final, actually. So we were really pretty close to going to the national championship, which would have been fun. But yeah, we had a good team that year. And then the next year, ended up coming back to, I did the same thing. I went out to Ottawa, and then I ended up coming back, decided to come back because we had a good team again. And we ended up winning the SI again. And I think that year we only lost like 8 or 9 games as well, 56. So we had a really good team the both 2 years I was there. And, I have lifelong friends from those teams. And when you win a championship together and when you win 2 together, those guys, like, you're friends forever, no matter what. And we still have group chats together and all that. And it was awesome. It was a really amazing feeling. It was a fun town, small town. It's like 8,000 people, but they get 2,000 people at a game. And they really support. So I had a blast there, and I'll never forget my memories of my time there.
Yeah, that's one of the things about, you get those like tight-knit groups of hockey players from juniors, and like you said, they're lifelong connections from juniors, college, everything. You never break those connections with guys.
No.
So like talk about that, like leading into then going to St. Olaf, like when did you start getting recruited and your recruitment process and everything?
So I throughout my like 19, 20-year-old year, I was talking to a few colleges around me, obviously around the country and stuff. And then when I went to Fort Francis, like that's right on the border of Minnesota. So a lot of like the Minnesota schools will recruit out of there. And so I was talking to a few schools, and then my friend, actually, Andrew Wilner, he was going to St. Olaf for a visit. And I didn't really know anything Olaf or anything. And, I wasn't even really talking to them, but he kind of called the coach, and he was like, hey man, like we have a break and my friend isn't committed anywhere, and he's kind of looking at different colleges and want him to come up. And they're like, oh yeah, absolutely. So I actually ended up just tagging along on his visit. We went up and we had a blast. And, I as soon as I got on campus there, I was like, this is an amazing place. I really, really want to be here. And the guys took us out and we had a great time, and it was awesome to meet everyone. And I really fell in love with the school when I was there. And then from then on, we and the coaches started talking, and then I ended up getting a pretty good financial package from them. And so it made it a pretty easy decision to go there. And then, yeah, that was probably the best decision I ever made. I mean, it was a bit of a whirlwind. I mean, 2 weeks after I committed, the coach got fired and new coach comes in. And so it was kind of a crazy, crazy little thing, but it ended up working out really well. And St. Olaf was like, I mean, for the best years of my life. I can't imagine myself going to school anywhere else. I still, as you can see if you're watching this on YouTube, I'm still wearing some of the gear, and yeah, I can't picture my 4 years anywhere else.
Do you still follow like how they're doing each season and stuff?
Yeah, I do. I mean, last year they won the MIAC, which was awesome, and then this year I think they lost in the semifinals of the conference championship. But yeah, it's still they have a new coach there than when I was there, but we're in constant communication about stuff, and I kind of help them if they need a guy to talk to some recruits about my time at Olaf or whatever, help them recruit guys and stuff like that. So I'm still pretty in touch with the program, which is nice. I mean, it's really a family environment. Once you go to Olaf, you're kind of an Olie for life, they always say, and it's true. So
right, yeah, it's nice to have that family environment, that connection with like college throughout the years. And I'm sure you guys will do alumni, events and stuff like that throughout time, and it's nice to know that you've got that connection to go back and like with different stuff, talking to the younger guys about your time there and like sharing what you had to try to get them interested is is all awesome stuff.
Yeah.
Transitioning to the pros here, well, obviously a huge thing that happened in early your pro career was COVID.
Yeah.
So talk about, like, you're a younger guy just trying to figure things out in pro, and now you've also got COVID mess. So like navigating all of that and dealing with it. And
it was crazy. I mean, I played Friday, Saturday at St. Olaf. I mean, we played and I got a call on Saturday before my senior night game, and it was Kansas City. They're like, hey, we want to sign you. Would you fly out tomorrow and play for us? So I was like, I'm like, let me play my game and then I'll call you after. I called after. I mean, my dad has a picture of me. I couldn't even wait. I was in half my gear and I was on the bench making a phone call to call the coach after a game. Yeah, I called him and I flew out to Utah to meet the team in Utah. I played Friday, Saturday, college, Sunday, Monday, in Utah, and then we played the following week. I think I played like 3 games, and then it was right at that time that COVID started creeping in, and then it was like a Wednesday or something. We got the call, season's canceled. So then I went from such a high, signing pro, and then next thing you know, it's like, oh, COVID hit. So it's like, whoa, and then you never really knew with COVID, right? You don't know, no one really knew at the start. So you're like, oh, maybe it'll be 2 weeks off, a month off, something, or if not, then next year will be fine. And then it ended up being, I think I was home for 9 months until the next season started, and then only half the teams in the coast, half the teams in the SB and the teams in the FP ended up playing. So I mean, guys were kind of all over the place, and so I was like, I don't even know where we're playing, and you think you might be going here, and then all of a sudden you're not there. It was just craziness, right? So it was definitely a very, very weird time to turn professional. But I mean, I learned a lot from it, and I'm here to tell the tales. At least, I'm still playing now, which is cool. But it was definitely like a roller coaster. I didn't even think would describe it properly. It was crazy.
Right, yeah, I've heard a lot of stories about, especially in the FP and the SB, where teams had to play with there'd be like 4 guys out on the ice because they didn't have enough, on a team, or like they had short numbers, benches, they only got 13 available guys, and like all these crazy things. You're playing pro hockey, you don't think about having to play like a man down all the time.
No.
Or
I mean, because COVID came through a team. I remember, I think it was Pensacola or something. I had a few friends on that team, and COVID came through the team, and next thing you know, you only like you said, like 13 guys. They had to play 4-on-4 one game because it's just like there was no leeway back then either. Even if they thought you had COVID, you'd have to sit out, right? So
absolutely insane. Either whether you were in college or in pros, just like having to deal with that was something nobody was used to. Luckily, things are back to normal now. But touching on that, each of the different leagues, you've played a little bit in each league, the FPHL, the SP, and the East Coast. And having played in all 3, what do you think is like the biggest difference, between each level? Like, what separates the Coast from the FP, since like that's the top and the bottom that you've played in?
It's weird to talk about the FP because it was a weird year with COVID. There was only 4 teams, so it almost felt like an SP or a Coast. Like, what I mean? There was just like so like all the guys came down from the higher levels so my experience there was a little different than I think maybe playing in a normal year. But I think the Coast is just it's a good level of hockey, and you're dealing with that affiliation with the NHL team, AHL teams, where like sometimes even if you're playing well, like it doesn't matter if a guy gets sent down, you might be out of lineup, you might get released. It doesn't matter. It matters sometimes what you're doing. But I think the biggest difference is just like the speed and the skill game is obviously higher the levels you go up. But you really see guys that have been who have played in the leagues for a long time, like those higher leagues, and when they come down, their preparation, the way they prepare for things, the way they train, the way they eat, like it's just like, and then when you play in some of the lower leagues, then you see like, okay, maybe that's one of the biggest differences I've seen. Like there's always that saying like be a pro, right? And sometimes you have, if you have 20 guys in the team at the Coast level, 15 to 16 of those guys are being pros all the time, whereas when you come down to lower leagues, maybe only 5 to 10 of those guys are being pros, right? So I think that's one of the biggest things I've seen for sure.
Is it right how seriously some of these guys take it throughout the different leagues? Because a lot of guys in the FP have other jobs and they're doing other things. So hockey's not the main focus. But like you said, you're in the Coast, you got that affiliation to the NHL, and not that it happens often. But I think I saw it with Kalamazoo's goalie Jet Greaves. He went from the Coast and then signed an NHL contract. So once in a while you see that movement. not often. And then you see the movement guys. If you're playing really well, maybe you get pulled up to the A or different things. So I think like when you said that NHL affiliation is like the huge part of it. It's just a mindset thing too. You're connected.
Yeah.
You're one step closer, I guess.
For sure. Yeah, you walk into the room, you see whatever team you're playing for, you see a Calgary Flames logo on the wall. Yeah, it's cool. It gives you a little extra boost and an extra jump and whatnot. But yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, opposed to like, yeah, there's movement in SP and like you can work your way up, but it's just like you said, when you see that logo, you're right there.
Yeah.
You're that close.
Yeah.
This season you've played with 3 different teams across the SP. So I guess talk about that a little bit, bouncing around and it's always tough to be bouncing around. Even if you're in the same league, you're still bouncing from team to team,
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's been a crazy year. I was in Jackal, and I was in Macon, and then Macon ended up trading me to Evansville, and I was in Evansville for about a month and a half, 2 months maybe, and then ended up going home at Christmas there, and I thought I was retired. I said, you know what, okay, I'm done, and I was pretty at peace with it. I played hockey since I was 4 years old, and I'm 27 now, and I've been able to play pro hockey, which, if you asked anyone growing up if I was going to be the person out of my group of people back home play pro hockey, everyone would have laughed at you, So I was able to accomplish more than I think maybe most people thought I would have, which is good. And so I went home and I'm like, you know what, I'm okay with being done. And I do a lot of coaching stuff back home, and I was ready to kind of maybe move on. And, I was home for about a month and a half, 2 months, and you kind of get that itch to play again and whatnot, right? You kind of start sitting around, you see people post on Instagram, and you're like, it would be nice to play. And that was right around the time my rights ended up being in Vermilion. So right around the time Vermilion actually folded. So we all became free agents. And then I ended up making a few calls around the league. And a few teams did try to trade for me at Christmas. And I said no, because I was honestly pretty ready to be done. And I was at peace with it. And then, like I said, you get that itch. So then I started making some calls again. And then people I knew around the league and friends, and ended up talking with Roanoke. And, we came to an agreement, and they wanted to bring me in, which I was very thankful for. And next thing you know, here I am a month and a half later or whatever it's been since I've been here, and I'm having a blast. And, I really found the love of the game again. I think I said a little bit when I was in Evansville. I think I definitely lost that a little bit, which kind of sucked, after loving the game for so long, kind of lose that. And I think that, I don't know if I'm going to play next. I don't know what's going to happen. I might be done, but I think that it's nice to me to know that I found that love of the game again, and I'm able to jump into the ring today again,
Yeah, so you pulled like a Tom Brady or a Brett Favre. You said like, "Hey, I'm going to retire," and then a month goes by, and you're like, psych, I'm back.
Yeah, that's funny because I'm the biggest Tom Brady fan in the world. I know my friends always joke, like, you had to try it, hey, you had to pull it. Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. You mentioned being at home, you like to do a lot of coaching, and I had that here on the topic. So let's talk about a little bit. Like you do some skills coaching. What do you like so much about that? Like doing skills coaching and working with different younger hockey players and different things.
Yeah, I've been blessed to be working. I've worked with a skill coach back home since I was about 15, 14, named Ron Johnson with Elite Hockey Science, and I've trained with him for the last 13, 14 years. But he's he's one of the top skill coaches in the world. He's a lot of top NHL players and stuff, and he bases a lot of he has his PhD in biomechanics, so he bases a lot of his stuff off of science-based stuff, and so it's been really interesting to learn from him. And then now over the last 10 or so years, I've been able to coach with him and coach the younger kids and stuff. And I don't know, I really love it. I've always joked, and now it's not really a joke, but I've always said I've really enjoyed coaching even more than playing, just kind of helping, develop players and seeing that light bulb go off where you kind of show them something, they kind of look like you're crazy, and then they try it and they get it. They're like, oh, wow, it actually works. You know? That feeling you get is awesome. From just able to help the next generation and really, really helping them kind of reach their potential and stuff too. I really, really enjoyed it. And, even throughout college, like in Minnesota, I coached a lot, and I run a camp there every summer now out in Northfield, Minnesota. And I do a lot of coaching in Vancouver. But yeah, it's something that I've always really had a passion for and really, really enjoyed. So especially as I'm getting older and older, starting to put more of an emphasis on that, especially in the summers and stuff. It really a lot, and so yeah, that's really what I plan to do afterwards is go into that field.
Yeah, so I mean, what you're going to retire from playing, but you're going to be sticking around the game, and sharing your experience and your wisdom. And you've got experience at so many different levels, from juniors to D3 and then, different levels of pro, that you can like speak to all kinds of different, which I think is really good for a skills coach to have that like kind of broad background, because you've been in each different place. You kind of know, you pick up on different things too, like you said, from other guys who have been in the league a long time, the way they prepare, and you pick up on all that along with your own experience.
Yeah.
And then you can share that.
Absolutely. I think it's so, like, some of the best coaches, even at the NHL or NBA, NFL, you look at these guys, they weren't never the best players, right? They learned, like you said, maybe they moved around, they saw a bunch of guys, or they saw how people did their processes, or even in themselves, you got to work so hard to be not that great of a player, but you have to work really hard. Whereas some guys like Michael Jordan or Wayne Gretzky wasn't a great coach. I love Wayne Gretzky, no disrespect, but but guys like that, though, they're just good, and they work very hard, don't get me wrong, but they don't know how to express, like, okay, maybe do it this way, and say, because in their head, they're like, just do it, Whereas a guy like Steve Kerr was a fringe, not fringe, but he was, an NBA guy, wasn't a perennial all-star or anything, but he maybe worked harder and had to develop his game in a way where he can explain that to the next generation a little better. So I think having those experiences and at different levels, and like you said, seeing different guys all over, definitely is something that I can bring to help the next generation of players.
Yeah, I like how you brought up the point of like Steve Kerr, like a fringe guy, a guy who maybe you struggle a little bit. You didn't have all that success, like you said, with Wayne Gretzky, or just because you're a great player doesn't make you a great coach.
Yep.
But when you have to like work harder, then you know what it takes, and you can share that wisdom. So I think that's like a huge point, for people to think about, like, oh yeah, maybe I'm not the best player, but that doesn't mean I can't still have a place in hockey when I'm done, or different things. I think that's a really good like piece of advice for different people. Just in general, other sports too, like that translates to all sports.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what sport you're playing, it's the same concept.
Yeah, I totally agree.
I noticed you're a really low penalty minute guy.
Yeah.
You don't get a lot of penalty minutes. Is that just like, your style of play, or just coincident, like you don't get caught, or
Yeah, if you're watching on YouTube, I know it looks like I got in a huge fight here. I actually got a puck in the face last game, so that's not from a.
I was gonna ask you about that.
Yeah. No, I didn't get knocked out, but that's happened before, but not this time. But I just it's fun. Juniors, when I was my first few years of juniors, I used to get a lot of penalty minutes. I was kind of a bit more dirty, pesty. I don't know what it was, but when you get to college is definitely a little bit more of a tamer game and stuff. And then I kind of realized, like, the more time you're on the ice, the more time you can have a bigger impact. And even as a defenseman, like, I'm not overly physical, but I like to kind of use my stick more, poke and move, and then move the puck up ice and get moving that way, as opposed to trying to like blow guys up. And that's a lot of times where the penalty minute from, you try to blow a guy up, your elbow gets a little too high. Next thing you know, you have 15 minutes, 5 minutes and 10 minutes, whatever it is. Whereas I don't do that too much, but I actually prided myself on that in the last few years, and kind of not being in the box too much and whatnot. But yeah, it's definitely it's not something that I consciously decided to do, but it may be something that evolved time where I was like, I kind of want to be on the ice more. I'm not helping my team when I'm in the penalty box, and I'm obviously helping my team on the ice, but yeah, and it's maybe as you get older, you get a little more tame. You're not in as many scrums, or maybe I'll grab a guy on the side and say, hey, just relax, let's calm down over here, and well, let's let the other guys kind of get crazy in the middle there, and we'll just stand over here, kind of things like that. But
yeah. So I mean, you kind of like. And it shows that you don't have to be like you said, crazy, blowing people up to be like a successful defenseman. You've kind of showed that you can have some success at a pro level, playing a little bit of a, like you said, tame, or you're going to use your stick a little bit more necessarily than your body.
Yeah.
It's just a little bit different style that I feel like is actually probably more rare in some of those lower leagues, because that's where most of the fighting and, the guys that are just bruisers and a little bit less skill sometimes. So, it's interesting that it's worked for you in a little bit of the lower levels. But who wants to like deal with that too? Like you said, you're 27, so you're not that, maybe at your prime age anymore, and you don't want to be dealing with getting your brains beat in by some other, guy who's 5 years younger than you, and he's all hopped up on adrenaline.
Yeah. Yeah, no, exactly. I definitely think there's a time and a place for a fight, and I need to, I will, but it's not something that I'm actively seeking. I will say that if it needs to happen and I need to protect someone or something, if something happens around me, sure. I don't like my face like this.
Right. So how did that happen? Was it just like did you go to block it with your face? Like
yeah, just slid right in front of it.
Yeah,
a guy came down the right wing and he wound up for a clapper, so I just got the stick. I got my stick and then it betrayed me and it went right up my stick, the puck, and right into my nose. So I didn't even feel it really. It kind of went numb right away. And then I was skating around and I looked and there was just blood dripping. I'm like, oh, I should probably get off this sweat.
Yeah. Yeah, it didn't break, no broken, nothing, just
No, it doesn't seem like it. Mine's still kind of straight. I know. I used to be an ugly guy. I'm a little uglier now, but I mean, it's all right.
Yeah, it's not like twice the size or anything.
So no, yeah, it's getting a little black and it's the swelling's gone down. It's good. I'll be all right.
Yeah. All right, so we move into like a few just kind of like quicker, topics to touch on. You're a podcaster yourself, actually. So I guess you could touch on that a little bit here quick.
Yeah, so actually in college we used to do just for fun, like a St. Olaf hockey team kind of unofficially used to do there's a radio studio on campus at St. Olaf, so you can have a slot every week. So I got doing it since like the mid 2000s, 2010, something like it's called Stuff and Things. So they would do an hour show every week, and then they would always bring in a younger guy to kind of take over for the seniors they were done. So they brought me in when I was a sophomore, and then I kind of realized like they recorded everything on the air that one like the studio did. So I was like, oh, we should start putting this online, right? So then we started recording them every week, and we would put them online, and then we started getting kind of interviews, and then getting some decent traction actually. Whether we had like Marc-Andre Fleury on, we had Carcillo, we had some some decent NHLers and stuff on, and it was a blast. We enjoyed doing it, and then COVID hit, and we kept doing it actually throughout COVID, and then guys got jobs and busy, girlfriend, fiancés, whatever, and so we stopped doing that. But I kind of wish we kept that going. We had some good traction with it, but that's okay. But that was a lot. And then me and my brother-in-law actually in the last year, he played pro basketball for 7-8 years, and he and I actually started a podcast called The Kickback that I think it's a good concept and everything. We're just both really busy right now, obviously with me stuff, so we haven't been able to record as much as I want. I mean, we tried to start it as a bi-weekly podcast, and right now we're like a yearly podcast. I think we have like 5-6 episodes, right? But definitely not putting them out like you are. But I think as I maybe go into the summer here in the off season, maybe we can start recording them more. We're actually planning on recording tonight, I think. But yeah, it's called The Kickback. You can follow that on Instagram if you want, and I hope that in the next year we'll probably be able to pump out and hopefully gain some traction with that too. But at the end of the day, I'm not trying to be Joe Rogan. If it turns into a huge podcast, great. But it's something I really enjoy doing. I've always enjoyed the media side of the game and kind of talking about sports and life and whatever, and so it's something that I really enjoy doing, which is the main reason we do it.
Yeah, that's the same thing with me. Like I like you look at some podcasts and they say episodes every Tuesday and Thursday. Like I can't be that definitive because like I don't know if I'm busy. I just kind of post when I can. And like you just said, I do it for their enjoyment too. If I gain followers, awesome. If people want to listen, but I mean, I have some episodes like 3 people listen to it. It's like I had a blast doing it. Like only 3 people listened, but like I had a great time. So I feel the same way. You get to meet so many new people when you got guests on and hear stories and make connections and stuff. And I think that's truly the amazing thing about it.
Yeah, I agree.
So if you had to play a sport other than hockey, what would you play? Like if you had to play professionally, like, this is going to be your life.
Yeah, that's I'd probably go basketball. I've always been a pretty big basketball fan, and I learned like rec basketball or like going and shooting hoops and stuff. And I always joke they call me LeBron James. But I definitely think basketball is something that it's probably my second favorite sport. I mean, I like football too, but I would never play football. It's just it's too intense. I would probably get hurt as much as the next guy. So it's just too crazy. But yeah, definitely basketball. So in another life.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So have you been following like March Madness and everything?
Yeah, it's been crazy. It should be. I mean, I don't know when you're releasing this, but the championship game tonight should be pretty crazy.
Yeah, I won't have it released before then, but everyone who's listening, we are talking about it before it happens. So like if we say who we think is going to win, we're not just, repeating what happened. Yeah. This was recorded before the game ever happened. I think UConn's going to run away with it.
Yeah, I think so too.
Like it's cool that San Diego State made that run, beat Alabama and everything, but UConn's just been beating up on everybody they played. It's been crazy.
Yeah, no, I agree. I definitely agree. That was gonna be my prediction too. So it's at 2:44 Eastern time on
Yep.
April 3rd. So just in case anyone wants to check us on that.
Right. Let's see here. What's your go-to karaoke song? Like if you're in the bar with a bunch of your buddies and there's a karaoke machine, you lose a dare, you got to go up there. What are you singing?
That's a tough one. Is it just me or am I doing a duet?
You're well, okay, let's just do a single first.
Okay.
It's just you.
I'll probably go with Hotel California by the Eagles.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's
good song.
Not a bad.
It's not too crazy, but it gets people going. I can do a little
everyone knows it too.
Exactly. You get a nice air guitar solo in there too and everything. So
yeah. Okay, now what if you had to do a duet with one of your teammates?
One of my teammates? I would love to do Breaking Free. I think that's just High School Musical, I think it'd be hilarious. So that would definitely be one of them.
Well, if that ever happens, you're gonna have to let me know. Somebody's gonna have to get a video, and we're gonna have to get some proof. Like I want to see that someday.
Okay, deal. I'll send it right your way when it happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I always love asking people that question. Everyone goes a different way. Some people pick just like the most generic songs because they know they're easy. And then somebody once, I had this girl, she plays D3 at Worcester State, and she's like, I'm picking this for my team. And it was Break Stuff by Limp Bizkit. And I was like, that's not a good karaoke song.
I would love to see that actually, because that would be intense. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
All right. Here's another one. I've never asked this. I'm always looking for I try to do some quick questions, some that are more fun, but I don't want to do the same question every pod. I'm trying to mix it up. So I've never done this one before. If you could play on a line with anyone ever, the greatest hockey players, your favorite, whoever, who would you want your line mates to be?
Wow. It's a tough question. If I'm a D man, I would say my D partner, I would love to play with Bobby Orr, just because greatest defenseman in NHL history, in my opinion. I mean, people will always say, "Oh, they weren't as good back then," but it's, for me, when I'm comparing the greatest of all time, you got to compare them to their own generation, their own era, in my opinion.
Right.
And I mean, he was the best player in the league, not even just the best defenseman in the league, when he was playing. So I think Bobby Orr would be a blast because it would be easy. I could just sit back, pass him a puck, and probably get a couple second assists and whatnot, So definitely Bobby Orr. And if I was a forward, I would say, Wayne Gretzky, greatest player of all time, is an easy pick. And then probably Pavel Bure, just because, like I said, once again, I can just pass him the puck. I can watch Bure dart down the ice and just enjoy his speed, and probably get a couple backdoor tap-ins from Gretzky. So I think those two would be my pick.
Yeah, if you had either Bure or Gretzky, if you had them both on your line, you'd be racking up the points just because they'd take you up. You look at Gretzky and the teams he was on, obviously some of those guys they were fantastic hockey players, but they were all helping each other out. When you got three guys on the same team with these crazy numbers, it's because it's like a three-way triangle just working together between those guys. Yeah.
It's like that old story of that player that was, I forget his name, but he got 50 goals playing with Gretzky. And then Glenn Sather let him go in the offseason. What are you doing? He had 50 goals. And he's like, you could put a fire hydrant out there with Gretzky and he'd have 50. And then sure enough, the guy never did he never really had a good year in his career. It's hilarious. But
right, yeah. It's I'm sure it's the same thing with McDavid. Look at how many assists that guy has. He is setting up people. And not that they're not, good hockey players, but take him away and then what are their numbers? You got to look at that.
Yeah, a friend of mine actually, speaking of good passers, Joe Thornton, a friend of mine was at San Jose Sharks camp a few years ago, and they're doing an intra-squad game or whatever, and they look at Marlowe and Thornton look at my friend, they go, hey, do you want a goal? And he's like, sure. They're like, okay, go to the back door, put your in the ice. And Marlowe and Thornton just buzz around the door, and he's just there, back door. Next thing you know, the puck just zips right off his blade and in the net. He's like, oh, there we go, perfect.
Yeah. Right, that's crazy. The guys, they know where it's going to be. They know they've got the vision, and their hockey IQ is so much higher. Everyone in the NHL is special in some way, but the guys that are on top, it's just a different animal. Yeah, it really is. It's crazy, and you look at every generation. It's just the guys that are on top. They're all phenomenal hockey minds. Yeah. It's not even just the physical ability and the speed and all that stuff. It's it's the IQ that's so
Yeah.
important.
Well, that's what I try to tell kids too when I coach. Like, yeah, you can be the fastest guy on the ice, you can be the most skilled stick handler, shooter, whatever. But at the
Right.
end of the day, what's probably going to separate you, and most likely is going to separate you, is if you can the game. Because you see guys that are really fast skaters who will never make it, but you see guys that are really bad skaters who have a great mind for the game, and they might be able to make it still. You know, so like it is the great separator in my opinion, is like the way you can see the ice and your hockey IQ.
And I feel like not enough people emphasize that, you know, like
Yeah,
for younger kids, they just see, you know, guys pulling sweet moves and they think like that's what I need
exactly.
to do to get there. It's like, yeah,
Yeah,
it's awesome if you can be like Trevor Zegras and you can pull some of this stuff, but you don't have to do that to get to the NHL. Like there's
yeah.
other avenues, there's other ways, you know, and like you said, that, I mean, that's perfect that like you share that so kids understand.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's true. I mean, like I said, like there's plenty of the amount of players you'll see at levels that I've played at overseas in Europe, and you know, but maybe they just don't have that mind for the game and whatnot, and that's sometimes the biggest difference. You know, you can stick handle through in a phone booth, as they say, but you can't see the lane to make a pass. It's a difference, right? So yeah, I definitely
Right.
think
Yeah.
we're in a big Instagram age of training and development, and everyone wants those highlight reel goals, and even trainers online, that's all they'll post is are these highlight reel drills they're doing. But you got to be working on the other things that aren't as flashy and aren't as noticeable, that'll really separate you.
Yeah. It's like, it sounds so dumb to say it, but you got to bring it back to the basics. Like,
Yeah,
you know, you look at the NFL, Zach Wilson, they basically said, like, we got to take a step back because he needs to get his fundamentals and his basics. He's trying to be too flashy, too
yeah,
fast. You got to master the basics. You got to get that, like, IQ so you can see where things are going to be. It doesn't matter what sport you're in. And, you know, like, yeah, you can look at Patrick Mahomes and he's doing these, like, flashy underhand throws, but you can't just, like, jump to that. You know,
no,
you can't look at McDavid or Zegras or Draisaitl or Ovechkin, these guys, like, you know, you gotta work on the basic stuff
for sure.
and study the game, you
Yeah,
know. So it's
yeah, no, I
just
agree.
as important as the mental training, you know,
Yep,
obviously is
absolutely.
huge. Let's wrap it up here. Like when you're not, you know, when you're not playing hockey, obviously it's, you know, crazy busy during the seasons, but when you do have
Yeah.
some free time or in the off season, what are your hobbies? What do you like to do for fun?
You know, I'm a big movie guy. I love movies. Going to, like, especially even going to the movies, watching new movies. Me and my dad will always go to new movies, and then they come on the theaters and stuff. I think that's definitely something that I love to do. Even have a little IMDb. I rate the movies. I don't review but I
Yeah.
rate them and stuff. You know, just for myself. I don't show them to anyone, but
Yeah.
stuff like that.
So to interrupt you here. What's your favorite
Yeah,
movie?
that's always a tough one. People always ask me that, but I think it's tough to say one or the other. You know, like The
Yeah.
Godfather. Honestly, The Godfather 2, The Godfather 1 is great, but I love The Godfather 2 probably even more. I got to say The Dark Knight. I watched that movie. I was 13 years old. I went to watch that movie 8 times in theaters. So to
Wow.
say I was obsessed with the movie, that's definitely an all-time favorite. And I would say probably Gangs of New York. I love that movie too.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it sounds like a theme here.
Yeah, yeah.
A
There's a
little
plenty
bit.
of them
Yeah.
out. Yeah, but there's plenty I'm leaving out. But those are probably
Yeah.
3 that come to mind right now.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
you're a
Other than that,
big movie
though,
guy.
yeah. Other than that, you know, I'm a huge pro wrestling fan too, which is funny. I always think I'm
Okay.
joking. I love it. WrestleMania was this weekend. I was all over it. It was a blast. You know, I had some people over to watch last night and couldn't watch. They made it a 2-day event now. So Saturday because we had a game, but afterwards I watched it. And then last night was a good one. But definitely love myself a little bit of pro wrestling, and you know, back from Vancouver, obviously it's like there's a lot of, you know, outdoor stuff you can do, be out in the water or go hiking and what. So I definitely try to do that as much as I can when I'm home in the summers, things like that.
Yeah.
Spending time with family and
WrestleMania.
whatnot. Yeah, oh yeah,
Yeah, I've never been a big wrestling guy. I mean, when I was little, I had like all the wrestling toys, you know, that they
yeah,
had in the stores, and like I had the Money in the Bank like
oh
set
yeah,
up
yeah,
thing, and like,
yeah.
yeah, whatever. And I had all that, but I was never big, you know.
I know that's what everyone always says. Everyone's like, "Oh, I used to like that when I was younger." Like I did too. I just never really grew out of it. You know, I'm obviously not sitting here with the action. There's no action figures in my background here, is there? No. Yeah, I'm not
Yeah,
sitting here with the action figures playing all day. But no, I definitely still enjoy it. I mean, to be honest, it's not as good as it used to be, of course, but it's definitely
yeah,
still something I enjoy to watch.
yeah, for sure. All right. Well, I think that's a good place to wrap it up, touching on a lot of different things. I'm glad we finally were able to
Yeah,
connect on a time. We'll see what happens with the national championship game tonight. It's you know, it'll be fun, and whenever we post this, we'll see if we're right or wrong on
yeah,
our pick. But thanks again for coming on. Had a good time.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, man. This was a blast. I'm glad we got to finally do it.